Oh, hi. I'm Owlbear Rogue. Welcome to the cave. Tonight, I've got a potentially controversial one for you. This is 4 clever, empowering ways to get your party out of a tight spot. Now, I can already hear it. I know. You're saying, why would a DM ever want to get their players out of a tight spot? That's the player's job. That's the whole point of D&D. You will ruin the game if the players feel like they can't fail. There has to be stakes and consequences. And to that I say, first, let's all take a deep breath. Yes, I agree. But, some people play games where what happens, and their DM is never going to give the players a break or fudge a roll, and that's what they love about it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with playing that way. It can be an exciting, legitimate way to run a game if that's what everyone has agreed to. But I believe there are situations, and again, you're perfectly welcome to disagree with me, but I believe there are situations when it's appropriate for a DM to intervene, and that there are ways to do it that won't make your players feel like they got an unearned rescue. There are ways to do it that don't take away their sense of choice and control. A couple of these solutions will actually reward your players for the choices they made, and feel like you intended for them to happen all along. But first, what are some of these reasons you might want to help your party out of a tough spot? The number one reason is that the tough spot is your fault as a DM. You messed up. It happens. You didn't think through the implications of something you put into the world. You didn't balance an encounter correctly. That's probably the most common thing. Now you're about to have a TPK or some other big negative consequence that wasn't really in your player's control. It's on you. And in that case, I think it makes sense that it's also on you, as the person at the table acting as an all-powerful, all-knowing, godlike figure, to try to help them out of it if you can. Another time you might be happy to have one of these ideas in your back pocket is when your players are good and stuck. They're in that tight spot and they have stalled out. They're not moving forward, they're frustrated, and everything has ground to a halt. In that situation, I would try other things first before coming to a list like this. I would try providing more clear information or repeating information. I would offer them ways to get their thoughts down, like drawing pictures or making lists. And honestly, in that scenario, snacks. Snackos are never the wrong answer. Take a break, have some snacks, see if that helps everyone communicate and think. If not, for the sake of fun, you might want to intervene. Not to completely rescue them, but to open up a crack in this problem. Give them a way forward. Give them more choices. Chances are, if you created a scenario and they are hopelessly stuck in it, it was probably a DM goof up too. You probably didn't give them enough options or information to start with. So you might just feel justified in helping them out. This last reason is the most controversial for sure, but it is a hill that this little rogue will make a stand on. You might want to help your players out of a pickle. A pickle. Side note, I have the sudden urge to create a dungeon inside a literal pickle. Anyhow, you might want to help them out of a pickle they've gotten themselves into that just isn't fun. Fun is why we're at the table. And if something is happening that isn't fun, I say let's make it fun if we have that power. And I don't mean to imply that things that happen in D&D can't be hard or challenging or give us a chance to process some real life things like failure in the safe space of pretend. But sometimes things don't suck in a productive, interesting, worthwhile way. They just suck. Sometimes things are just not fun, and I contend there is nothing wrong with doing something as a DM to try to redeem them. So, if I've convinced you, here are 4 ways you can help your players out of an unintended, unfair, or unfun situation. It won't feel like cheating, I promise, and it will enhance the game as it moves forward. Let's get a classic out of the way first. The party is captured instead of killed. This is a pretty well-known scenario for that situation where you maybe didn't balance that combat quite right, and now instead of being killed very prematurely by a big bad or by a random monster they rolled on an encounter table that you way underestimated, now the party finds themselves chained in a dungeon or wounded in the den, a la Luke Skywalker upside down in an ice cave. The party is in rough shape, sure. Their ego and a few other bits are bruised. They're restrained and their equipment is nowhere to be seen. But they live to fight another day. The second pretty widely used solution is to have a god or patron intercede. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, there is a great example of this in the Dark Urge storyline, where your character can get an absolutely narratively necessary assist from one of the gods of death. And it is probably not the one you're thinking of if you're familiar with the Dark Urge storyline, but not familiar enough to have gone all the way through. I'm going to leave it at that to avoid some really spoilery spoilers. But trust me, in BG3, this intervention is earned, necessary, and satisfying. I do think, though, that if you don't do this one right, of all the solutions, it's the one most likely to make your players feel like they got a lame get-out-of-TPK free card. In order to make it feel slightly less like that, you need to turn up the stakes with the rescue. The cleric's god or the warlock's patron has interceded, sure, but there's a price. They have a purpose for you that you weren't aware of, perhaps, a dangerous one. This not only keeps the plot going because, the party is alive to keep going, but because it expands your world and complicates the plot. There's something new going on now. Next, and this trick might be my favorite, use something your party encountered previously, preferably something they earned, to give them an assist. Maybe a powerful figure they brushed up against somewhere earlier in the game was intrigued by one or more of the characters and has been waiting for an opportunity to approach them. Make them an offer they can't refuse. Now you have a chance to imply that this thing that went sideways, this pickle they found themselves in, it wasn't a miscalculation on your part as a DM. Maybe, just maybe, it was orchestrated by a powerful being looking to swoop in and save the party. How suspicious, how intriguing, how definitely totally planned and deliberate. The ancient temple they wandered through, that god was impressed and would like to get to know them. Maybe someone they helped previously out of kindness turns out to be much more powerful than they seemed, and now they have a major ally in this critical moment. Perhaps a magic item the party picked up but wasn't able to fully identify reveals a new ability. The campaign Wild Beyond the Witchlight does a beautiful job of this kind of thing, and we can look to that for inspiration. At the beginning of that campaign, the party goes to a magical carnival. Again, I'm going to try to keep this spoiler-free, but the decisions they make at the carnival have implications throughout the story. A very small gesture there might unlock a cage door, for example, or give advantage on a skill that's suddenly very important down the line. Believe me, parties are delighted to hear that they get to escape something because of some little thing they did months ago in real time. Now, they don't feel like you as the DM rescued them. They rescued themselves by making a smart, good, or even just strong choice. How very clever of them. Of these options, this one I think is the most satisfying for your players. My final strategy for extricating a troubled party from an impossible spot is basically the equivalent of a DM Hail Mary, but it works. Introduce a brand new mysterious figure with the power to save your party. This figure needs something from the party and has been watching them for a while. Perhaps they are also trapped here in whatever this space is, and the players present an opportunity for them. Perhaps they have a mutual enemy with your party. Maybe the necromancer the party killed a while back had an enslaved demon, and they were released without the party realizing it. She's been lurking nearby ever since. This figure could appear to the whole group, or just one party member with a flaw or a skill that makes them particularly interesting. Maybe that player character chooses to keep the real reason the party was saved a little secret, and now there's something fun the players know all about, but the characters don't. Some inner party intrigue. Maybe the mystery savior makes it so the PC can't talk about it. There will be, just like in the God patron scenario, some price to pay for this deliverance. The best thing about this strategy for you as a DM, and what makes it a little different from, say, the similar God patron intervention, is you can truly pull this mysterious, perhaps dubious benefactor right out of your Netherdeep, your booty of holding, your rear of annihilation. If your campaign is on the verge of coming apart for some unsatisfying reason, don't panic. Simply reach into your gelatinous rump now and figure out what it all means later. It doesn't have to be connected to anything that's happened so far. You don't have to think it through just yet. You don't have to have the details. If you do this right, instead of feeling bailed out, your party will be intrigued, and it'll seem like a plot point that you were planning and waiting to get to all along. And then you've got however long it takes to get to your next gaming session to get more of an idea of what the story actually is here. That's it, friends. Does the very premise of this video make you want to pull all your hair out? I understand that that is a possibility. Have you ever gotten your party into a pickle you couldn't get them out of on their own? Have you ever run a dungeon inside a pickle? That's the most pressing question. I'm asking for a friend. Have you ever used any of these fixes, or would you consider using them? Tell me all about it in the comments. As always, thank you for exploring the feminine urge to pull mysterious entities out of one's ASMR with me, Owlbear Rogue.